All right. Afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you guys for all getting together. It's a bright, sunny day out there. There's a lot of things you could be doing with your time. And a couple times a year, we like to get together with some of my friends and colleagues and help to demystify what we do, to lower the bar, to help you guys close the skills gap, the work ethic gap, the confidence gap that it takes to be on this side of the screen. And I want to show you today that everybody that you are, all your favorite influencers of education that are purveying freedom related information, they're just like you with a couple little things that they did for themselves along the way that made them a little bit different and puts them on this side of the production. So in lowering that bar, one of those things is to humanize everybody. We are not rock stars. We are not celebrities. Most of us did not choose to do this. We do it because we feel it's necessary in the world that we live in, unfortunately, that we have to spend so much time explaining the obvious to people who really have a low barrier of entry when it comes to evidence and things that they think to be true. So all the producers today focus on freedom-related content to liberate your mind, to help you get more out of your life. And I'm going to be asking them some questions today. It's going to be just easy conversation. Nobody's on the spot. Nobody's under pressure. We're just going to, kind of have an interview session that demystifies and helps to disambiguate some of the things that need to be done to have a book in publication, a podcast, a video, a movie, a whole series, a conference with hundreds of people. All these sorts of things are within your skill set. And I think that we all have these dormant proclivities for self-reliance that have been covered up by the crud in our society. And these VIP, very independent producer sessions are where we come together and we kind of shake that off and we share some of the magic that we've discovered for ourselves. And when you understand that that magic is just knowledge, understanding, wisdom, and experience coming together on a regular basis for yourself and doing things consistently, it's a lot easier for you to do. Before we go too much further, I host a course twice a year. It's called Autonomy. It's a training course for adults. The website is getautonomy.info. And we have an early bird special. We're going to start teaching at the end of March. So just a couple weeks away. And so there's a special. So you can find out. And that's also available to anybody who's interested from today's events. But we got to get to why we're here. Today's next guest is the host of the Courtenay Turner podcast. And we're going to talk about podcasting. We're going to talk about reading books. We're going to talk about posting on social media. But I also want to talk to her about this conference that she pulled off last spring. And as a lot of people came together with an interesting idea, there was a short timeline. There was all these uncharted pitfalls and obstacles in the way. And it was really interesting to see if it was going to come together. And it was one of a couple of these types of conferences that happened last summer. We also had the American Liberty Awards, which was a similar type of endeavor with a really good idea. And you don't know how you're going to do all the stuff, but you decided you're going to do it and you worked your way forward. Courtenay, thank you for coming today and investing a little bit of time with our audience to help demystify the elements of doing live productions. How you doing? Oh, you're muted. You're doing the Ryan Christian thing. I see.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm unmuted now. Sorry. Well, hello. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for making time. So, of late, you've been publishing, you've been reading books, you've been posting things you've found, and you've got research going on, you've got your podcast interviews going on. Are you having more live events this year? And then I want to demystify the one you did last year.
We are working on it. We're in the process of putting together a little promo thing for sponsors so that I think one of the big things we learned is that we're amazed that it happened and it came together, and I would consider it a success. I think it was, definitely exceeded our expectations, but I think it was definitely not the job for two people. So we are looking to get some sponsors and partnerships and some funding in the works. So
and you're giving yourself more lead time because it's like the runway. People misjudge the runway and how much you have before you got to clear those trees at the end.
Oh
And
yeah.
people come a lot of times short runway. And how do I clear the trees? It's like, give yourself more time next time.
Yeah.
Start planning something like 6 months out. And then that takes a real different type of commitment, committing to something so far down the road in the future and just saying, like,
Yeah.
these are the things, if we want to do a bigger event, you got to start sooner, and like
Hmm.
learning that the hard way, right? Is there an easy way to learn? I don't know. Maybe there is. Maybe it's autonomy, but there's also the hard way. And that's how most of us went through the school of hard knocks.
Yeah, I would say that would be the story of my life. So yeah. I just did like a 3 hour. I didn't think this is what it was going to be, but Monica like interviewed basically my whole life story. And she's like, "You've had a lot of disappointments." I was like, "Yeah." And now just going through all of them, like, and they're like big, it's like major epic failure, one right after the next. But we learn a lot in the process. So
Yeah. Well, there's trials and tribulations that we have along the way, and we could feel sorry for, oh, woe is me. Or we could take that as, you know what? I just overcame that challenge. I just outgrew that problem. I'm not going to have to do that again. And there's
yeah.
only so many of these things that get in our way. And then success does yield itself if
Hmm.
we persist and we refuse to quit on ourselves. These are
Right.
the things that help to move the world forward for ourselves and like all the other people who participate in those types of events.
Yeah.
Was there a point at the last spring where when you wanted to say we chose poorly and we want to quit and woe is me? Was there a point in the learning curve before you got to the payoff where you're like, this thing happened and it's going to work, that you were discouraged and you had to talk yourself through it?
Oh, there were so many of those. Yeah, I think I mean, I don't know that I can even pinpoint like one. There were so many moments where I was like, okay, well, we were crazy. This is insane, and we should just give up. But I think we really just, and when I say we, it's my fiance and I mean, he was really, it was the two of us together very much. And I think we really just felt like the mission was so much bigger than us. And, at some point we decided that, it really wasn't our event. This was, we gave it to him. And if it was meant to be, it was meant to be. But we really felt called to do it. And we felt like this was a mission. And at some point we just kind of took a leap of faith. We're like, okay, or I'm not going to keep, putting out the negative. This is the mission. We just need to figure out how. And there's a will, there's a way, and we'll just keep going. So that's what we
And
did.
did your relationship get stronger or weaker as a function of that adding complexity to your lives?
I think got much stronger. I mean, yeah, we were just so committed and the amount of stress and to see how we were just completely devoted and there for the mission, for each other. Yeah, I don't know what could bring a closer bond than that, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because those things can sometimes that would crush relationship, especially all the unknowns and there'd be an argument and all of a sudden like everything's off. And thankfully that didn't happen.
All right.
And what do you think you added to the situation that other people and couples don't add, and they don't survive that? Because now it's like you've got this battle you guys won under your belt. You've got that experience, and like David Goggins calls it like a cookie in the cookie jar. You can call them
Mhm.
that later when you're in a time of turmoil, that you did this hard thing in the past and you'll do this hard thing in front of you now too, right?
Yep.
Was there something like that you added, or a special communication, or you guys like how did that like flourish for you?
Well, I mean, we talked about everything every step of the way, and I mean, we do. We kind of do everything together. So we talk about everything, and yeah. So I think it was really just voicing. I think there was one point where I got very for typical, being the woman, I got very emotional and very frustrated, and um and he was just, I mean, he's just very solid, like he just stayed the course, and he was like, well, he was just the voice of reason for me. And at some point, like, I kind of got emotional and I was like, well, I'm not like, I think I lashed out at him, and I was like, it's not you, I'm scared and I'm frustrated and sleep deprived, and but we were just both really committed. So we talked through that. I think that was like the one, moment. But every other time it was really just voicing concerns, and okay, well, how do we get through this? Like, what are the fears? What are the problems? And I think both of us, in very different ways, we kind of like problem solving. So we're very like task oriented. Okay, what is the problem? How do we fix this? And how can we creatively fix this? And what resources do we have? And how can we pull those together? And that's kind of just every step of the way. And when I say every step of the way, because there were a lot of moving parts and constantly. So yeah.
I think you forgot an ingredient from your cocktail. I didn't hear about any blame throwing. You know,
Oh,
people spend a lot of time blaming and throwing and
well,
that didn't seem to be in your recipe. Maybe you figured something out.
yeah. Well, I tend to be, I'm not really like, I don't tend to blame others. I might blame myself a lot. And he's really good at like bolstering me when I do that. You know, he's always like your worst critic. So I tend to get down on myself and, you know, that's not productive because then I'm not as productive. All that time and energy that I spent being like, oh my gosh, I messed up here. I didn't do this well, or, you know, or I'm not capable. Like none of that is really all that productive. So that time, you know, getting through that, then I could be spent on actually solving the problem and not being like, oh my gosh, I'm not capable, you know, or I suck.
Let's
So,
dig into that energy state management that you talked about, because that's where a lot of people just running into the guardrails
mhm.
because they can't make that turn. They start sliding, and the all next thing you know, they're off the road. And then they don't know how to like get back on the road and get productive again. And once they do, it's like having a tow truck pull you back over. It's not easy to change those states of energy. When you're in a positive state, and then
Yeah.
you got to take in, here's a negative state of energy, and now you got to get back positive again. These are like us shifting up and down in gears. And if we
Yeah.
increase our dexterity and mentally just seeing it like, oh, it's like driving on a hilly road, we're going to have to shift today a lot
Right.
more than usual. We're going to be pressing that clutch. Now, I know that doesn't translate to people who can't drive standard shift, and I'm sorry for your experience. It's a wonderful skill to have, and it gives us all the cars that are really good in the end. So, being able to like not just navigate mentally,
Yeah.
but shift emotionally through the ups and downs so that you're not running into the guardrails. Do you have like dexterity in that? Where does it come from? What inspires you to have that mentality and hold it?
Mhm.
What's your secret?
I would say both. You know, definitely there's experience that has driven that. You know, I think there's some personality, and then there are some tools. So, prior to getting into all of this, I was very immersed in the fitness world, and I would do aerial acrobatic performances, and I would share my birth story, and I talked about really the performance was just to be a testimony to my story, to show people what's possible when nobody thought it was. And my speech was really centered on was movement as a metaphor for life. So I would talk about people's physical training. You know, in physical training, a lot of people can, you know, they can resonate with this idea of taking a challenge. You know, it's something very concrete, very tangible, and overcoming it. But they also resonate with the work that it took to get there, and then what it felt like when they accomplished something that was, you know, seemed impossible. And I saw this both, you know, with my own journey as well as especially given my birth story, but also when I was a coach and a trainer. And so I feel like it's a really great tool for people, you know, from philosophical perspective to teach them like, I am capable, I can do hard things. You know, here's something I thought was impossible. I put in some work, I set some goals, I gave myself some scaling options and just built some consistency and I achieved the goal. And oftentimes, you know, it was great when I was coaching because I could really see this. You see how people think it's just like impossible, but they keep plugging away, not actually thinking they're going to achieve the goal. But it's like, okay, I'm doing this workout because it's good for me, you know, get my workout in. Maybe it's my hour away from work or whatever, my kids, or, you know, it's their distraction for the day. And then they achieve the goal. And what I notice about that is it's great that they achieve that goal. Now they're stronger. They can do this new great skill. Awesome. But what was even more profound was watching people then feel empowered in other areas of their life. And I very much felt that way. That's why I would do these speeches. And I think for me, you know, it's a whole, I started my college application essay saying that, you know, my life began as a series of challenges. And since then, I've continued to seek, you know, physical, spiritual, emotional, and mental challenges to surmount. And I kind of feel like that is the story of my life. Like you know, as much as I may complain when I'm not where I want to be, I do actually really like challenge, and I love the feeling of accomplishment. That to me is a reward. It's like, and I don't necessarily, you know, success is different for everybody, but for me, it's actually being able to do something, like achieving something that I thought would be really difficult, or I thought was impossible even in some cases. So I think that is from my experience is definitely, but then there's also focusing on the task at hand. So this is something from my acting days, they would tell you like, you can't be, a lot of actors when they start, because a lot of actors don't really go into it for the craft, unfortunately, but when they start, they're so busy like waiting for their turn to speak and then to present, it's going to be their like shining moment. But oftentimes what actually ends up happening is they become really self-conscious because they're thinking, oh, I'm going to do this brilliant thing and show the world, like, whatever it is in that scene. And they think that they're going to do that and they get very self-conscious. But if they're to truly focus on what is the through line, what am I here to do? It takes away the self-consciousness. It takes away a lot of the doubt because you're so mission oriented. And that's something I really keep in mind. And definitely with this event, it was like, well, there's a task, there's a mission here. And this is way bigger than me. This is way bigger than the two of us and even all the people involved. And, just stay committed to that. And then that takes all of the, it takes a lot of those fears, the anxiety, and the self-consciousness of, oh, maybe this is crazy. Maybe I'm not the one to do this. Maybe I'm not capable. Or maybe I'm not enough. It takes that away because you're not focused on you. This isn't about you. It's about what are you doing and what's the task at hand.
So part of that's learning how to get out of our own way
Mm-hmm.
and not let, bring our fears to manifest in that situation, all our worst fears. It's like your thoughts can become things through actions. And if all you're thinking about is what can go wrong, then you're not giving yourself enough opportunity for what can go right. And you're probably missing opportunities to improve things because you're too worried looking in the rearview mirror at the fear.
Yeah.
And so it's about getting these things internally straightened out and then performing at a higher level in reality. I think it's pretty simple, but more people can pick
Simple,
up
but
on
not
it.
necessarily easy.
Yeah, it's not
Right?
easy.
Yeah.
Nothing is easy. Being broke's not easy,
No.
right? Not having enough money to buy food, that's not easy. Not having a
No.
house, that's not easy. So life's going to be hard either way. Which way do you want it to? Which way do you feel comfortable practicing excellence?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Easy. Easy. I do this because this is easier than not like being in a situation where I can't practice excellence.
Yeah,
That's it.
absolutely. Yeah,
All right. You had an interview recently with Monica Perez.
I did.
I saw her tease that interview. It's been going on for like 3 weeks. I've been waiting for that interview, and then I couldn't watch it the other day when it was going on.
Oh, no.
Did it go well?
It did go well. Yeah, and kudos to Monica because I don't know that I would have quite been, I mean, it was 3 hours. It was almost like,
Oh, geez.
Obviously there's a lot more in my life that's been more than 3 hours, but that was a lot and it was pretty vulnerable. So kudos to her for, being able to, for me being able to trust her to do that. So yeah, but yeah, it went well. We've done many shows together. She's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
she is awesome. She's Ivy League educated. She's whip smart. And she
she's
was the
super smart.
first person to review the ultimate history lesson and write something about it publicly.
Oh,
And so then that's
wow.
how I learned about her. Cause I was like,
Ah.
Lisa, look, someone wrote, look, somebody's seen it. It got out there.
Yeah.
So we'll always have a good place in our heart for Monica because,
Mhm.
and she's amazingly consistent. That was 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Look at what she's doing today. She's
I know. Yeah, she's awesome.
consistent.
Very
Drive
much so.
time. You got to entertain people with little news on the way home. All right. So in your situation, in your growth curve, where are you at and what's the next thing on your radar that you're trying to grow into or that seems too big for you to do, but you have to do? What's the current situation?
Well, we definitely want to do another Cause Fest. So that's, the big project. And yes, we are going to give ourselves more time. So we don't have the actual date set up yet. We're figuring out the partnerships. And from there, when we have some more, things solidified, then we'll figure out because we do want time to promote. Because one of the big feedback we got was that a lot of people said, oh my gosh, I didn't know about it. And this was in my backyard and I totally would have gone. So that, definitely if we have more time to promote, more resources to pull from. So definitely that's on the agenda. Definitely to grow the podcast, scale it. That's definitely, and probably to shift a little bit. I've been doing a lot of volume, but I think I am actually going to pull back a little bit because I've started to outline a book. And so I've had 3 publishers reach out to me saying that they would like my book. And I was like, well, that's great. I'm so honored, but I don't have one. So I guess that's on the agenda. So, and that's a bit daunting, but Yeah, so that's on the list. And then I don't know, I never thought I would get into like the political arena because I think that politicians are awful, and the more I learn of them, the more true I seem to find that. But there have been a couple of issues where I spoke out, as you know. I was recently on your show with the NACs, and then I ended up going to the Senate. So um yeah, so there, and now I've been very involved. I've already gone. I'm going back on the school choice issue because I feel like, and this is kind of how my podcast started. I don't want to be a hypocrite. Like I felt like when I learned, I kept saying how auto critique is part of the problem. It didn't work out so well in the Maoist struggle sessions. I don't want to be part of the problem, and that was part of why I started speaking out. And I keep saying people don't take local action, especially I think people on the freedom movement, the political right, whatever you want to call them. But typically they get very, motivated and vocal and involved every 4 years when there's a presidential election that, arguably we have very little power in at all, if any. But locally, we possibly actually do have some power to effectuate some change. And a lot of times they just don't get involved. So again, like some of these issues have been come on my radar, and I was like, I can't really sit back and then tell other people to take local action. So I, felt very impelled to get involved. So those are some of the things I'm in the midst of. Yeah.
Well, and local is where you can actually win. Local is where
Hmm.
you can have an effect. Local is where you see the effect, and local is
Hmm.
where accountability actually is.
Yes.
So even if you don't want to run for office, those
No.
people need staffers and emailers and people to put up signs. There's a whole bunch of ways to help out.
Yeah.
And finding other people that share similar values and taking actions in reality with them is very invigorating. It's a
Hmm.
substantial, meaningful experience. It raises your level of confidence because you're actually developing competence at
Hmm.
moving the ball down the field.
Yeah.
And that's what people are missing. And you can't buy it at Amazon or get it on Netflix streaming or any of these types of things. Like it's not
Mm.
available there. It's inside you, and you have to bring it out through actions. Um,
Exactly.
Once upon a time, when I was learning how to do films, I there was like an online film school that I went through, Dov Simons, and in there he gave me the answer to the question about like, hey, do you have a book? And the answer, because he said you're going to get people that come and they ask about funding your projects, and you're never going to have what they are asking for. So here's the answer. He said, I'm a producer and I have many projects in various stages of development. Which one are you interested in? And that's it. It opens a conversation. These people say they're looking for a screenplay. You got a screenplay. If you need an
Hmm.
advertisement, you got something, 30 seconds. He's like, this is how the game of catch is played in those conversations. And if
Hmm.
they throw the ball and you don't know how to like catch it and throw it back, they move on to play catch with people who do in the marketplace. This is just
Yes.
like the language, and it exists, but you don't hear it. And it's anything except noise until you learn to speak that language. And then you can, when opportunities there, you can be there. And then
Yeah.
people call you lucky, it's your overnight success after 20 years.
Right. Yeah, I was just talking about that. Yeah, exactly. That's so funny because I've heard that so many times because I come from the Hollywood world. So yeah, it's always I've got various projects and various stages of development, and yeah, always. So we had a film we started doing a treatment for. I had pitched the concept. I think now, because I don't think we can get it out, the time frame really would have been ideal to get it out for October release, and I don't think that that's realistic at this point in time. So I think we may adapt it so it'll no longer be an actual person's true story. Instead, it'll be like a inspired by, and we'll have some more creative licenses. But I actually think in some ways it might be more enjoyable for an audience because it's not like a documentary so much. It'll be really more creative and yeah, fictitious. So
Well, this is spontaneous, but I figured
yeah.
I'd mention it because everyone on here, we watch content, right? You
Hmm.
watch stuff occasionally on Amazon or Netflix or one of these places, and it's interesting. Maybe it's Narcos, and you're like,
Mm.
"Oh, this is how they work," right? Well,
Mm.
once upon a time, we had a film project, and it went to Netflix. It was called Kilos. It was
Ooh.
based on the story of Hector Boreas, and it started with us interviewing him for 5 hours, and then my buddy Paul and I sat down, and over a couple of weeks, we made a 3-season arc of the whole story of the Guadalajara cartel, the Medellin cartel, all these sort of things. And it went
Wow.
to Netflix with Hector and the producer and Hector's manager John that we filmed with, and they said they're not interested in Hector's story. They're not going to pay him any money. And then they wrote something called Narcos Mexico, which tells the exact same story arc, but from the CIA's official narrative perspective, because this is not the official narrative perspective. Now,
Yeah.
that's a failure. You got to go out there in the market and you got to try.
Yeah.
But maybe a year later, Tiller Russell goes to Amazon and says, I got a story for you. And Tiller goes and gets the life rights to Hector's story. And then he goes to Amazon and gets $2 million budget. And it is out there and you can see it. It's called The Last Narc on Amazon. And it's the story that you should hear to balance out your Narcos Mexico habit.
That is,
But it's important for people to know, like, this is how content actually gets out there. Somebody had to
yeah.
know that guy's a whistleblower, put cameras and microphones in front of him, take and shop
Mhm.
that around. It's like, when I interviewed Bill Binney back in the day, nobody really knew who Bill Binney was. But within a couple years of that video having 1 million views, he's in an Oliver Stone film. He's over here in this other film. They make one of the guys plays him, famous actor, and in some other film. So people's stories get out there because other people who aren't famous and don't have big distribution say, hey, would you like to do an interview? Let's shoot some footage. And then somebody important later sees that down the road as opportunity. It's like the small role we can play in how things happen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And being able to like navigate those waters is not something any of us are taught to do.
No.
But it's there as an adventure to be taken, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's all an adventure. It's definitely been there's been no lack of excitement. So,
All right, we have time. Let's take 2 quick questions.
Yep.
Mission control. If we have 2 quick questions.
Thank you. Hi, Leah C. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me? Okay, goody. All right, I think my question is from a little bit ago. It's not going to be a direct question for this interview, but I'm wondering, like on a technical matter, how did you approach thinking about the security and safety of your work? And specifically, what host server do you put your website on so the powers that be don't take it down?
I have to accept that they take it down all the time, but I also put my work on the interplanetary file share system that can't be ever taken down. But that depends on people who initiate such nodes and perpetuate it through time. And the answer is you just have to keep putting it out because they're going to come behind you. They're going to sweep websites. They're going to censor. They're going to ban. You can't give them the satisfaction. My work is always 3 steps ahead of wherever they're erasing it or trying to censor it last. And I don't worry about those things.
Okay.
What about you, Courtney?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely experienced pretty early on. It was mostly YouTube that was just taking me down. Then I found out because people were trying to find my stuff on YouTube, and they had pretty much canceled me. And then I got a bunch of people sending me screenshots saying that the SPLC had put me on their hate list. So this was at episode 11, by the way. So it was
The
pretty
milestone
early
that says
on.
you're effective.
Well, thanks, but I was really bewildered by the whole experience because I was like, I'm like, like, how do they even know I exist? So, yeah, so I really kept going, now we're on, I don't know how many platforms, but any opportunity I get to be on other platforms, I just keep uploading, and I do have my own website, so for now that works too. So I
It
always
looks
have,
like this.
yes.
CourtenayTurner.com.
Yes,
Got to spell our name right in order to access it. It's like a puzzle,
it
but
is.
you can solve it, but you can solve it easily.
Totally. Yeah. So, yeah. And Twitter banned me for a very long time, but when Elon took over, I appealed to him 11 times, and then I finally got my handle back.
I would like that. Well, I practice on Twitter. They have those things that you can't say, otherwise you get buried in the algorithm. And I try to say at least 3 of those things 4 or 5 times a day so that only
Nice.
conscious people can see my tweets.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. That's
I'm
awesome.
still an introvert. I don't want to say it to millions. I'll just say it to a couple hundred.
Right.
All right. That was a good question. Do we have one more question?
Sure. Travis, please unmute yourself.
Howdy, Travis.
Hi, Rich and Courtney. How are you guys today?
Well, thanks.
Okay, so sorry. My question is about how you guys digest a book. I know, Rich, you have your brain model, and I was wondering if you always read your book by your computer, or if and Courtney, like, you're so brilliant, how you portray your thoughts or break it down for the rest of us on the internet. And I was wondering how you guys attack a book and go about it.
Go first, Courtney.
So I don't have like a strategy of how, I guess kind of like much of my life, I'm very passion driven. So I kind of let my interests drive me. And, then I hope that it'll be relevant to others, but really I'm very curious. So I may go into it with specific questions, but I'm always prepared that whatever information I may receive may, run counter to what I initially sought out to discover. And oftentimes that's actually the case. That happens a lot. Or I might find that what it was that I was, researching, like whether it be a book or, whatever material that I'm researching, I might find that it actually sends me down another path. And I tend to let that path guide, like just kind of follow it. And yeah, so I usually collect, the key points that were really interesting to me. And then I try to think about what would be relevant to other people, like what would other people be having trouble understanding. And oftentimes when I'm researching something, it's something that I brought up or had conversations with people about, and I've heard people's questions or concerns. So I try to address that, and I try to break it down for people, because a lot of times it's really that people either don't have the time, or a lot of times I hear people say, well, oh, that's, it's over my head, or I can't process that. That's, I don't have the training for that. I don't have the background, or I'm not smart enough. And I hear that all the time. And I actually don't think that that's really true. I mean, I'm sure there's outliers and there's cases where it might be true, but I think more often than not, we're, there's lots of components to this. Of course, I think social media, living in a soundbite society, being where people don't actually read anymore and they're being spoon fed, that is partially feeding it. But I think people are also very deterred. So they don't have the confidence that they're able to digest material, that they're able to, ascertain complex subjects. And I think oftentimes it's been presented to them in ways that are way more convoluted than what the material itself really is. So I try to just distill it. Like, this isn't that difficult. It's not inaccessible. I think I was a philosophy major, so the philosophical conversations are really fun for me. And I think it's one of the myths that people have been told, and I think intentionally, that, philosophy is just for the, academics and for the top scholars. And I don't think that's true. I think most people are capable of it. It might take them some time. They might need to learn some jargon, because a lot of terms and definitions that aren't used in everyday colloquial language. So that may take, a bit of time for them. But I think it's really more that if you have the philosophical background, and this goes really for any field, I think, but definitely for philosophy, if you have the philosophical background, you kind of have a foundation for which to understand a lot of what, other schools of thought are being projected or promulgated. And so one of my missions is to, convince people that it's really not above them, that, they're perfectly capable of, grasping it, and hopefully to make it enticing and interesting for them. So,
Yeah, your philosophy is your operating system. So
mhm.
you really want to have a non-contradictory operating system. Not an easy thing to get in this realm, because you got to learn about all the different philosophies of people trying to figure out and deliberate over what is truth,
Yep.
what exists, what is reality, and how
Yep.
can we have answers that are non-contradictory so that we can actually use these ideas in reality. And to answer the question specifically, I usually buy a book because there's a specific question I'm trying to answer. So on
Mhm.
the history of Israel Palestine, I might have 20, 30, 40 books on this topic. This one's Rothschild and early colonization in Palestine from the 1880s. And many times when I get a book, I will go to the index and I will read through the index so I have an idea what's in the book, and maybe
Mhm.
some points I want to spot read right away. I then I mark pages with a highlighter, and then I use some post-it notes on the edge so I can find my place to really important hot topic pages. And then I might put ideas on note cards. And when I get a stack of note cards on the topic, I have a presentation, I have a podcast, I have a documentary film, I have a book project, whatever it comes from. I'm looking at evidence that exists in reality and then trying to fit the puzzle pieces to the picture that I'm seeing on the landscape that they're painting. And there's all too often the news media landscape is giving you caricatures when HD photos are available, metaphorically speaking. Like anything I could tell you about something from this book is like parenthetical and like very impotent compared to you actually reading and comprehending what's in these books. Or even I've been trying in the past week just to get people to read the 67 words that formulate one sentence that is the Balfour Declaration from 1917 addressed to Lord Rothschild. He's the one that wrote the first draft. The British government sent the fourth draft back to him. If people just understood this one thing, and what does it mean? It means one of the world's largest banking families from the 1880s to 1917 from both England and France got together to create their own nation state after they had perfected the South Africa apartheid project that was going on. So there's a lot of history that pertains to today and the real power that's in control of manipulating both sides of all these conflicts.
Yes.
This knowledge is available. It's not conspiratorial, other than that is the nature of politics and martial strategies. So if you're going to study the history, you better get familiar with what conspiracy actually looks like.
Yeah. And, to bring philosophy into play, I talk a lot about the Hegelian dialectic, and it's a strategic operation. And really interestingly, I interviewed somebody who is in the Senate, and he told me that somebody from Burning for Angels, which is like an offshoot of the Freemasonry, actually came to them to teach them how to use dialectical psychological warfare. And of course, he had a background, so he was pretty, taken aback by this and pretty disturbed by it. But he said it went right over their heads. Nobody felt that it was concerning at all. And they were just soaking it up, that this is how they're going to use the dialectic as, literally an operation to psyop people. And of course, they've been doing this for a very, very long time, this intentionally. But I think that for the masses, when they're starting to, sift through information, it's really important to understand that oftentimes, both sides are being played, and both narratives that, it's like a dialectical pole. So they're creating both narratives. And then, like I was talking, I think I tweeted this pretty recently. It's like people often think of, ideology and political affiliations as being philosophical constructs, and not to say that there's no philosophical origins, but anybody who knows philosophy, as you just mentioned, there's tons of philosophers even in one school of thought, and they don't all agree with each other. So this idea that it's one very concise through line is a little bit reductionistic. But what I said is, I think that, more often than not in application, what you actually see is target audiences for marketing. And I think that if people keep that in mind, they're less likely to fall into, the sorcerer's circle, to kind of step outside and be able to adjudicate information instead of glorifying or, vilifying a source per se. If they would just look at the information itself, I think we'd be in a very different world today, but,
Yeah. Well, it's a story that's going to keep on going. So if we don't figure out what we're doing and then learn how to share it with others, it's, only a matter of time before there's not enough people playing the music for the orchestra to take the stage. And people need to be able to understand that there's an organized group of people. First off, it's a finite planet. There's only so many people here traditionally trying to manipulate the rest of our lives while we're just trying to get along, right? We want to be left alone, and they won't leave us alone. And therefore we have to dedicate a little time every now and then to trying to figure out who they are, how to insulate ourselves from them, but also solve the problems of living in a physical 3D space reality here on planet Earth. Because there are needs to be met. You have to protect yourself from the environment. You have to feed yourself. You have to provide yourself transportation, all these different things. And they do this, to try to take away your food supply and take away your transportation, take away your communication, take away your privacy. It's just like they're upping the resistance in the game because people are getting closer and closer to solving the puzzle and really setting themselves free of all those untruths, unrealities. And they can't have that. So they're trying real hard to keep us all busy.
They are, and I would just add to that, and they want to rob you of your joy. This is part of why we did the cause fest. I'm like, if we can figure out all the solutions to all these problems, and really have personal sovereignty, which obviously is the goal. But if we do all of that, and we're depressed, and we're angry and resentful, then they kind of won. So I think it's really important that while we're going through all this information, figuring out how to achieve our liberty and our personal sovereignty, that we have fun. Don't let them steal your joy.
That's right. It's from Gunny Highway and Heartbreak Ridge. Don't give them the satisfaction. Courtney, I want to thank you for taking time today and investing it with our audience to enrich them, to embolden them, to let them know that there are things they can do they haven't done yet. And they can take steps in that light direction. I appreciate you so much. And I look forward to continuing to see all the things that you're rolling out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right. Coming up. You guys aren't even through, you haven't seen anything yet, because after our next guest, we're going to have Jordan Page. Jordan's going to not only disclose some of the mysticism of how he does what he does, writing epic songs, but he's got a story and he's got a song that goes with the story, and he's going to blow your minds. And I'm not overselling this, but I just wanted to let you know, don't go after Pete's done. We're going to have Jordan he's backstage right now. He's in the green room. He's getting prepared, but we are a little bit behind schedule. So I'm going to go to this quick message from myself. I'm doing this live right now. In a couple of weeks, we're launching Autonomy Season 11, and you get to find out about it at getautonomy.info. And that's all well and good. You can click those links whenever you have time. But I want to tell you why I created this course, because we can talk about all these problems. My first podcast, 9/11 synchronicity. Problem, 9/11. What's the root cause? People lack critical thinking and creative problem solving, and they don't have the cojones to get together and say some things that seem hard to say, but actually reflect the hard and fast reality and get things done. And because those things weren't done 20 years ago, you have some tragic events going on in the world today, like another 9/11, by the same Anglo-American establishment who did the first one. And a lot of innocent lives are being lost, only instead of over a couple hours in the morning in September, it's over 4 months, as we all have to sit by and watch our tax dollars go to buy more weapons while saying it's awful that the Gazans are starving. It's like funding both sides of the event. So all those horrific things, they're going to continue to precipitate. They're just going to get worse. But we do need to know the 5 W's plus how of what they're doing, insulate ourselves from that. And then let's get the skills they took away to break our education and turn it into schooling. Let's get the ability, a method, a 3-step method to dispel confusion so that no matter what psychological warfare they're precipitating today, you can cut through it with insightful questions that actually depend on metrics and standards of evidence to make your decisions and choices for yourself and your family and your friends and your community. Because this is the immune system that they turned off about 50 years ago, and it's documented in the Reese Committee hearings. And we could say, woe is us. Actually, it's 70 years ago. Geez. Woe is us. This happened, and what are we going to do about it? It's like they turned off the mental immune system of this country. We need to turn it back on. COVID just proved it to you that at least half the population will accept anything on a flashing screen as far as facts and truth. They don't know the difference. I don't know how to help them. For the other 50% who's discerning and conscious and courageous, we have methods, we have strategies, we have tactics, we have systems, and we have a whole lot of resources that we've accumulated over the past 5 years, the past 10 seasons, because we do it twice a year for 12 weeks at a time, that you can bring to your aid. They're at your beck and call. We have a whole University of Reason of additional courses at the graduate level for people who make it through the autonomy course. It's a flagship course. Everybody has to go through it to get access to all that other content. 12 weeks on ethics. Here's 8 weeks on your rights and the Constitution and what are the limits of freedom that you should be espousing every day if you only knew. So these types of resources are available. Most people need them. A lot of people are interested. Only so many will solve the puzzle and find their way into this season. There's about 3,500 people interested right now. We have 100 seats and we have packages of replays and other things. And we have a whole layering from people who can afford the best and brightest of what we have. And we have people who are struggling right now and need, the replay package and not so much of the other accoutrements, bells and whistles that they probably couldn't take advantage of right now anyway. It's one time to get into the university. That's it. We don't upsell. There's nothing else you have to buy ever to make these things work. So I tried to make it everything I didn't like in other courses. I didn't put those into my course offering. We have an exemplary track record. Nobody has ever invested in themselves, bought this course, and then come to me asking for a refund because I didn't deliver what I said I was going to deliver, or the magnitude of value that I said I was going to deliver wasn't exceeded. So with that all being said, we're going to go to a quick break. You're going to get to see my pre-record from earlier with Pete Quinones, because he has a podcast that's like skyrocketing. You want to know some of his secrets to learn how to have access to people, to use that skeleton key for success and get practiced using it where you need to access information to overcome your next challenge or obstacle in front of you so you can meet your goals consistently. And that's where you really get meaning and satisfaction. You can't get it at the store, but you can learn to get it from investing in yourself. We will be right back. Thank you for tuning in and staying tuned in.
What can you do now that you could not do before joining Autonomy?
That's a tough question, really.
I see myself change of framework, mental framework, or a way of analyzing situations.
I cannot do sales.
Well, honestly, I can better tell the difference between me making excuses.
I think I can think about sales and marketing and all of that stuff that I know I need to learn about.
Ask for help.
If I wanted to, I can record a podcast.
Talk to people that I couldn't talk to, that I was afraid to talk to before.
So I would say that before I joined Autonomy, I definitely could not have considered applying for sales positions or for, trying to create my own sales position, independent contractor, something like that. I couldn't have done it because I didn't have the confidence or even the interest or knowledge about how sales could be used in this type of a way, right? Like that was an entirely new thing to me. So I would say that that's the biggest. Also, the consideration of creating a digital asset or creating a course, starting to think about marketing and marketing funnel and a landing page and all that stuff, that was not on my radar. Now, I'm not there exactly, but now it is something that I'm aware of and will be considering. And I also think that something I was not doing before Autonomy is seeing opportunity everywhere and thinking about, well, how could this person have their own business? How could they have an asset? How could they sell that, market that? Could I help them? And so it's like this change in your thinking of starting to see the opportunity in other people, for other people, and for yourself. That wasn't there either. So those are all pretty significant changes.
I see myself, I consider doing things that before I considered impossible. This to be more entrepreneurial, for example, not necessarily creating a company, but starting something on the internet or so. I haven't started anything. I don't know what I will do, but now I consider it, and I don't consider something. I consider it something impossible.
It also even helped me realize and be able to see the holes in my business. So I think in one of the lectures he was talking about, what was it? Basically becoming indispensable, right? And what you need in order to become that. And one of the things is to just continuously train, right? And to be leveling up your skills and that sort of thing. And it never really ends, and that's okay. And it's like, if you want to just have money thrown at you, I will say, or just, like it's easy to get a promotion. You want to be the best, and you can only be the best when you really know what you're doing. So that one really made me look at some holes in my business.
I can call myself out way better. Like that is an excuse. Like I'll even say that sometimes that is an excuse. I'm making an excuse right now versus like genuine holdbacks, right? So because sometimes there are things that come up like I can't do that because of a genuine real thing, or I can't do that now. It's something right away. But yeah, I'm way more keen on knowing
you know yourself. It sounds like you're saying you know yourself better.
And I can do that in a positive way. I'm not afraid of it anymore. I'm not suspicious. I realize, do you know, one of the big things that drew me to autonomy was this idea of ethical business. Because I think I grew up with some negative, conflicting beliefs. And some of the mindset I inherited was that, successful people, there's something dodgy about them. There's something suspicious about people who are successful. I'm kind of going, wow. I don't believe that, but I know at the same time I haven't necessarily managed to break free of some of those, I guess that's scarcity, isn't it? Kind of a scarcity mindset kind of thing. Just, that there's nobility in hardship and all this kind of stuff. These are ideas I inherited. They're some of my cultural baggage and familial baggage and stuff. And so I think it's really helped me because it speaks to that part of me that goes, no, I think it is possible to be successful and to do it in a way that's positive and can actually make the world a better place. So I guess that's important for me because that's actually uniting parts that were maybe disparate or separate in me before. So I think autonomy is helping me. The lectures are helping me get to that.
That might seem so simple, but to say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. Can you show me? That is in itself to be vulnerable, not have this turtle shell around me all the time and say, I'm okay and everything's fine, which is kind of what I do.
Even just the meetup group that I created, like, I don't think I would have, I don't know. It seems like a lot if you aren't ready to do one, but like now it's not a problem at all,
That's great. That's great. You just needed a little inspiration.
Yeah. I think a lot of us do,
right.
But this is the right community for that. And everybody's really supportive and you just want to, help other people and see them succeed.
Yes.
I'm even challenging my bosses at work and all in a respectful way, but I'm speaking up. I rattle their cage a lot of times now, where before I would just listen and I feel much more relaxed and confident in work. And now with the business, I'm not concerned about talking to people that I'm going to have to talk to. Looking forward to it. Just putting all the pieces together to get the wheels and keep the wheels in motion.
What I enjoy is, first off, offering an online course for adults. It's not an easy thing. You guys got lots of things going on. You got lots of options in life. How do I keep your attention and purvey healthy, clean water from the well? You can lead a person to knowledge, but you can't make them think. How do we make it work? So it's not just a curriculum. It's not just exercises to own those skills. It's also a community. And with that community comes a lot of extracurricular activities, projects, and all the marketing and everything. Like everyone who works with me, for me, they're all autonomy graduates. So what is it? It's a training course designed to bring out the excellence in any individual, whether you want to be an employee, an entrepreneur, an investor, like whatever you're trying to do, learn how to do that with excellence. There's going to be obstacles along the way. Learn how to overcome those with an attitude of gratitude.
a willingness to get it done, and the resourcefulness to ask the questions to overcome those obstacles. Learn your way forward. These are the elementary skills that we should have been given in school if it was a real education. And because so many people graduate from those systems and don't thrive because of the absence of these tools, it was a logical idea, an offer to say, here are these tools, try, survive, and thrive. So twice a year for 12 weeks at a time, I take whatever students show up and are looking to learn, and we go through the paces of, we do a global meet and greet, we do a lecture each week, we have a Q&A after the lecture, we have another Q&A on Sunday for people in Europe and Australia and other places that couldn't make the Friday lecture. We have exercises during the week where you work out with other students in a virtual dojo and build your skills. We have community activities, we have ongoing education, we have a whole university of courses that comes to the graduates once they make it through the flagship course of Autonomy. It's one fee to get in, there's no other fees. It's lifetime enrollment for those who want to keep coming back each season, twice a year to improve themselves. I've got students that have been through it 10 times, and they continue to show up for themselves, grow, adapt, evolve, overcome problems, and get closer to achieving their next goal. So if you want that type of choice, opportunity in life, you can go to getautonomy.info/ignite. We're changing the landing pages and stuff right now, but we're open. So check out the offer for season 11, which starts in about 6 weeks.
Hi everyone, my name is Gabriel from Autonomy Season 2, and I just wanted to share a little bit about my own personal journey to autonomy. When I started these courses, I was going through a lot of problems in life and juggling a day job, and it was really difficult. But the community really came through and brought some light to a dark situation and helped me find all the necessary next steps that I needed to take. Now, through this course, I learned a lot of high-value skills, but it was done in such a way that I was able to build them around knowledge that I already had, skills that I came in with, and turn them into something bigger, something I can turn into a career for myself. In that journey, I started discovering and unlocking value that I already had, that I didn't recognize, but other people saw, and they helped to identify and bring to light. So when I walked into Autonomy Unlimited with a couple ideas, I ended up walking out with a brand new freelance career, and that was huge. And all of this is within a year of joining the first session for the course. And after that year, I've already left my day jobs behind, and I work to support Autonomy and Autonomy Unlimited anywhere possible. And I'm already moving out of the country so that I can get started on my new life and my new business that I'm building with some fellow students. And I can't be more excited for what's coming next, and I hope you can find the same for yourself with us.